Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are on episode 14 of What Does It Take? Today, we had a guest lined up. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it, so they are going to join us next time. But we got a pretty good topic to talk about, which is quite relevant anyway. So we will get stuck into that shortly. But yeah, as always, joined by my co-hosts now with an S on the end, Chris Swan and George Gilbert. So yeah, today we are going to cover when's the right time to enter prep, which I think a lot of people sometimes don't think enough about. And I'm sure you come across this, Chris, quite a lot with some of your prep clients as well, do they ever ask you, do you think it's the right time, or do you often find that they tell you, I'm ready to prep, I want to go in?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Sometimes the guys will have a date in mind, whether they're a new client and they've come to you, and they might have a date in mind that they want to compete at, whether it's a show that's close to them and they've maybe got friends doing it or whatever. But it's a very different story to, is it the right time for them? You know what I mean? Because if they come to you and perhaps they haven't had a very structured off season, or their health isn't great, there's a number of barriers there that could stop me as a coach from saying, oh yeah, let's do this show or let's do that show. So it's I think it has to be kind of, if you're taking on a coach, it has to be a joint decision between the client and the coach to decide on a date, because it's all good saying, yeah, well, as a client, I want to do that show, but if a coach is going to put his name on you as a client, we want good results, really. So we've got to make sure that the starting point is, in my opinion, is perfect, because it's number one, you're going to get a better physique and a better placing. And number two, you want to make the prep as comfortable as possible. I mean, it's never comfortable in the dog end of a prep, but you can make it as bearable as possible if you set yourself up at the beginning, for a good starting point. So yeah, I think the conversation has to start as a two-way thing between the client and the coach, for sure.
100%. Have you ever been in that awkward situation where you had to tell a client, we can't prep right now, we need more time?
Yeah. And to be honest, I think most guys, if they're serious about the bodybuilding, they do listen. The kind of the awkward one is when you get the guys who come to you and they're not necessarily, they're not in a great place, and it's probably going to require a bit longer than they first anticipated, whether they don't have enough muscle to start with. If someone comes to me and says, I want to compete in a first time bodybuilding show, and let's say they're very, very overweight, but very strong, taking a lot of gear, the food's really high, then really we've got to kind of pull back a bit to start with, just to get the body working properly, make sure that their health is in a good position. And then it could extend that whole process by another 6 months or so, really. Because you got to make sure that it's right. Especially with how popular everything is now, a lot of people just want to jump into the show straight away, and some of them haven't even been training for 2 years, and it's like, unless you've got that muscular maturity and density, or you've got genetics on your side, you really have to plan it out in advance, I think. And yeah, sometimes it does require a bit of an awkward conversation where you say, like, look, dude, we need to put the brakes on this idea for a bit. Let's just get a bit more gym time in, get your body in a better position, and then we'll talk about it in a couple of months,
Yeah, it's great points, and all of those things are so important. But also, I think, is what is the client looking to get out of competing as well? I think that's really important, because if they want to, for example, they've done a few shows last year, they've done quite well, but realistically, they need a lot more muscle to, let's just say, for example, get a pro card in whatever federation it might be. Sometimes, they might want to compete the next year and be really adamant on it, because they love competing. But I've had that conversation a couple of times with people, where I've had to say to them, and sometimes it doesn't get received too well, I think that we need to spend a little bit more time in off season to grow that tissue needed for you to get that pro card. Yes, you might get it next year, but it, depending on who turns up. But if you want to put yourself in the best possible position to get it, we might need a little bit more time to grow. And yes, sometimes it's not what people want to hear, but I think as a coach, you do need to sometimes present that option, because if you want that person to keep leveling up, there's no point in just continuously competing without spending enough time growing. And that time growing, again, is going to be person dependent. So some people just respond so fucking quickly. Like even in a pro standard, look at like Samson, the progress that Samson makes, for example, like a lot, like that's not achievable for most people. Like the amount of progress that he can make in one push in one off season takes normal people many years. And obviously they still don't look like him. So it's
absolutely.
It is very person dependent on that front. But yeah, I think it's really important to analyze what you're looking to get out of it. So likewise, on the flip side, if someone just wants to compete for the experience and to try it out, then I'm not necessarily against them going for it. If they really just want to get stuck in there and see if they like it, as long as they can obviously nail the fundamentals, they tick the boxes, they do all the training and stuff, then I'm not necessarily against it so much. But again, it depends on the category, because you can't have someone turning up after training for 6 months do open bodybuilding because they just look stupid.
yeah, for sure. It's a hard conversation to have. I imagine it's probably a little bit more tough for Georgia to say to the girls, you need to take a full year off to improve, because obviously for the female athletes in particular, it is a little bit more uncomfortable pushing your body weight up where to make the improvements. Whereas with the guys, you could probably sway them to say, look, we're just going to feed you up for another 6 to 8 months and you'll be okay with it. But yeah, I would say 9, well, maybe 8 out of 10 guys, what is stopping them from being a great bodybuilder is a good long off season. People just don't take the time off. And I think that's where we're talking about setting up a prep. It's all to do with having a very successful off season. And I think that's what separates a good bodybuilder from a great bodybuilder. So, it's definitely a conversation to be had.
I mean, how long was your last off season? It was a fair amount of time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I excuse me. I always try and take a full year off in between shows. So say if I compete, I competed 2021, I took all of 2022 off, and I'm coming back this year, and it's looking like I'm probably going to be about 10 pounds heavier on stage. So it does pay off.
Yeah.
One sec. Hey up, babe. One sec.
That's all right, mate.
Hey up, darling. Daddy's doing a bit of work, babe.
Whilst we're waiting here.
It's one of the biggest things as well when it comes to like it might not be as relevant to men, but obviously like it's something you've done anyway, but definitely for females, because of cycles and things like that, to have as long off season as you are on prep, because you can have like say you prepped for 16-20 weeks, whatever, 4-5 months, and then you literally go, okay, well, I've done 4 months off season and then I'm back into prep, but actually like you spend however long recovering, so you're not in your growing phase, then you've spent time building back muscle you might have lost, regaining your health, feeling good again, and then once you've done that, you can then push up for a few months, and then you might have to do, depending how much weight gain you gain from your post show. Some people want to go into prep again because they've gained too much weight and they're just like, just put me back into a prep, rather than just being like, let's balance things out, because obviously your hormones and everything are in the right place. And then it's knowing like, how long have you actually given yourself to grow? So like, if you are in prep for like 5 months, maybe give yourself 6, 7, 8 months to grow. Like, yes, you're going to make some changes, but you've got to think the longer you have off, the stage is always going to be there. The longer you have off, the better look you're only going to come back with. It's just that thing of being away from the stage, feeling like you're missing out and having that like FOMO watching everyone else get on stage. Because I mean, I had it last year with Matt, because I obviously wasn't going to prep. I still had a long enough time off post my long prep, but I knew it wasn't the most optimal thing, but did it anyway, because I didn't like the idea of Matt going to Alicante and then me being like, well, I've got to pay for everything and then just sit and watch you. So I knew that was going to be the case. But it's like this time round, Matt is going to be competing again, and I'm fully aware that I mentally don't want to yet, and I physically want to come back better. I want to make sure I've grown, so I know that the time will be on my side, that if I can put that work in. So definitely, I know men tend to recover a little bit more so than women, but I know from a female side of point, you can rebound quite hard, gain a lot of fat, and then you then spend time having to realign with your hormones and your weight and pull it back again. You might do a mini cut and all that kind of stuff. So you're not really pushing too much into a growing phase. You also then, if you do reverse really, really well, you've got to think actually the first month, 2 months, however hard you had to push and however your body's responded, those first few months, you're not actually growing. Just because you've got energy again and because you can feel your muscles and your sleep is better and stuff, that doesn't mean to say that you're growing new muscle tissue. You're just going to regain the stuff you've lost. You're focusing on your health. You will need to get your menstrual cycle back. So there's a lot of fundamentals to get into place before you've actually had some solid growing time. And like you said, for a female, yes, we're not like open bodybuilders, so we don't need to grow like loads of muscle mass, but if you are aiming, it's a bit different if you're doing obviously some lower level shows and you just want to grow some muscle and come back better, because there's loads of fundamentals there. But if you are aiming for a pro card, as much as I've said before, like, it's not the highest thing on my agenda, but if it was something I was to get, I want to make sure I'm worthy of one. I don't want to get one by luck, like no one else turned up and it was like the best of a bad bunch or whatever. I want to know, because when you get your pro card, you're right at the bottom of the ranking again. So I want to look like, if I ever got a pro card, I'm worthy of being a pro. And like, yes, I'll be bottom of the pecking order, but I can hold my own. Not just, oh, they got one because they got lucky and all this, that, and the other. And then you look crap when you go on stage at a pro show. So I think that's, again, like Matt said, it's what are you expecting out of it? If you want to go into some lower level shows, have fun. Like, that's exactly what I did for my first show. I literally just threw myself in and saw what happened. And like, I gave it absolutely everything, but I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And I was like, right, now that's the bar and I want to come back better. And then like COVID hit, so I had to take loads of time off. But but yeah, it's managing your expectations of what you want out of it to then think logically, are they going to match the time you've got and your other variables and everything that goes with it?
Yep. 100% agree. I think you covered a lot of points there. It was really, really good.
Went on a mission. I'll be quiet again for 10 minutes now till I'm back in.
I think it's really, Chris, you briefly touched upon it. I mean, a lot of it does come down to your health metrics as well. I think this is so important for females, but also for anyone that's assisted. So we can briefly cover a couple of those aspects now. So for a female, for example, because I would say, what would you say, about 50% of our prep clients are female? Yeah, about 50%. So for me, for a female to go into prep, they need to be, a while since they've last competed, at least since they've gone through their health phase. We ideally want to gain that menstrual cycle back, and you want to at least have that menstrual cycle for, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 cycles before you even think about going back into prep, because a menstrual cycle is basically an indication of female health, basically, and getting their hormonal function back to what it should be. So if that's still tanked and you haven't even got your cycle back, the likelihood is your body is not in a healthy position to go into prep. In terms of health perspective from male or female, actually, that are assisted, there's many, obviously, biomarkers that we can look at there. One of them, which I think is the most important, which could impact your prep, is obviously your thyroid. Your thyroid takes a massive hit when you go into a prep, and it downregulates massively. And this is, the recovery of your thyroid is going to be really person dependent, just like anything else. So some people might take absolutely ages to recover. And me and G can be a prime example of this. This is why G is not ready to prep. I'm ready to prep because my body, I'm quite lucky in the fact that it recovers very quickly. G takes a little bit longer to recover. So yeah, it's really person dependent on that front, because if you go into prep where your thyroid is still fucked, like, you're going to have a terrible time, like, trying to get that body fat off. It's going to be really, really difficult for you. And then likewise, looking at your other biomarkers, if your liver, if your kidney function, cholesterol, like red blood cells, if any of those are out, then you're not putting yourself in the best position to start a blast to go into your prep. It just doesn't make much sense. So it's off of your mental state, if you're mentally ready, but also if your body is physically ready. And yeah, you really need to take that into account. If you want to have a smooth prep, and like Chris said earlier, bring your best physique to the stage, everything needs to be aligned. Everything needs to be in a good position. Do you ever go through like sort of blood work, Chris, with your clients and look at those sort of things, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would always follow a heavy push in an off season with sort of like almost like a deload phase, a health phase, whatever your current trend wants to call it. But that'd involve sort of backing off the anabolics, getting all your markers to an acceptable level, as you've just said. Particularly because with a prep, you'll probably be using a lot of orals. Liver enzymes are going to shoot up towards the back end of that prep. Your kidneys need to be in a good spot, because it sounds stupid, but if your kidneys are in good nick, you are going to secrete water better. Your water retention isn't going to be as high. So it's super, super important to make sure that for a starting point for bodybuilding, for physique, for everything really, that you are healthy, because whether you like it or not, prep isn't super healthy towards the dog end of it. So if you can put yourself in the most advantageous position to start with, then you're almost beginning damage control before you started, and you're putting yourself in the best spot. So yeah, it's a short health phase is what I would look for after a big push. Check blood work, make sure we're all ready to go. And then you'd sort of, you would kick off the prep. I'd also be looking at food to be at a very good level, a substantial level. So we've got plenty to play with. Body fat not to be too high to start with, but if it is high, then that's another conversation you might have. So there's a couple of things I look for. But yeah, what would be your sort of tick list that you look at for making sure that you're in the perfect spot for a prep, would you say, as a coach? If you could have maybe 3 or 4 boxes that you want to see ticked before you begin, what would yours be as coaches?
So it depends on the competitor, but generally it is, making sure that they're in a healthy position to do so. Also, if they are, so they're mentally ready. So I did a post yesterday about it. Basically, I'm prepping now as well. So this is another reason why we're talking about it. I'm actually doing that a little bit early, which we'll get into in a minute. But yeah, one of the reasons is because I'm so mentally ready. And like Georgia said a minute ago, like she is not mentally ready. Like even if, there was a show that she really wanted to do, her going into a prep now would be a really bad idea, because you do still have a little bit of food focus, right? You're really enjoying your food still.
Yeah, I love my food.
She loves her food. I hate food right now. I've been force feeding for quite a while. My food's pretty high, and I was even like struggling to get food in. So I've had to resort to a little bit of junk calories now to just try and get the calories in a little bit. And I'm like, look at really nice foods like cookies, donuts, whatever. And I don't want to eat it. I just do not want to eat it. So that's a really good sign that you're mentally ready to prep. So yeah, that's definitely something that we take into account. And then also selecting the shows. So which shows are you going to do? And then we sort of like reverse engineer it from the show. So say, for example, they've picked out a federation that they really want to do, or they are quite new to competing, they're not sure. So we sort of like advise which federation that is potentially good for them, and then sort of like reverse engineer it from there. And then making sure that they have enough time, but also potentially not obviously too long to the show, because if you have a really, really long prep, then they might not even make it. So ideally it's a good thing to come into the show ready early, but you don't want to be ready like miles off. Like I took over a prep from a couple actually. They were with another coach, and they were ready like 10 weeks before their first show, and this is their first ever show, so they've got to be in stage condition for 10 weeks before their first show, and then they've got
brutal.
Yeah, it's savage. And then they've got a whole run of shows to do after that. So yeah, that's a big thing as well, like mapping out the framework for the whole prep and making sure that the timeline aligns with what they're trying to achieve, and that's going to be smooth for them. That's another thing as well. I think they're the main ones, aren't they?
I think as well, on the flip side with prep and lifestyle, girls, I get a lot of people that are like, okay, they might be carrying a little bit of fat, and they go, right, I will just want to lose some weight. And then they're like, right, my current calories are like 1,300 calories. I'm doing 5 times cardio a week, 30 minutes cardio. I'm on this many steps, and I just want to get rid of this fat. And it's like, where are we going to go from there? Like, you give it like 8, 16 weeks, you're going to die, because we haven't got a lot of variables to play with. Like, if you are truly sticking to that little calories, that's an obvious sign that you are not in a deficit, and your body needs to have some health. It needs to have some maintenance. It needs to back off the cardio. It needs to have a little bit less stress and a little bit more like recovery. And so I think if you're going into prep to fix a problem about body confidence, or you're not happy, then you actually need to resolve that first. Because if your cardio is really high, or your food's really low or something, you're not giving yourself, like you said, a good run up to a comfortable prep, because you're just going to keep pushing food back. And you obviously, again, your body's not in a healthy state to want to respond to any of that. So it's just probably not going to, and then make it a lot more difficult for yourself. So yeah, there's that. And then what else was I going to say?
I'm not sure, but yeah, you did briefly touch upon that, to be fair, Chris, didn't you? You said like food needs to be in a high spot, but yeah, alongside with that, you know, the expenditure also needs to be not in a super high place either, because yeah, you're just going to run out of runway and run out of things to do, because otherwise, I mean, I have seen people before have to do like over 2 hours of cardio, be sub 1,000 calories, and you do not want to be that person.
That's me.
That's great. Yeah.
But that's because we know I've got that's my genetically.
Yeah, unfortunately, Georgia does have to really push, but
you don't want to do it because it sucks.
No, you don't want to set yourself up so if you start in a really bad position, the likelihood is you will end up in that kind of spot. Unfortunately, no matter what we do with G, she's always going to end up there. But yeah, your start position is really, really important.
I think as well, I know you touched on it with your mindset. So with you really wanting to go prep and me knowing I don't want to prep, also your external variables that might trigger your mindset. So it might be things like, are you in a good place with work? Are you in a good place with your family? Because as well, if you've got like home stress going on and you're like, well, stop this, I just want something to focus on, that might not be the most optimal, comfortable way for you to prep, because it's going to add more stress because you're going to go into a calorie deficit. You have to be more selfish with your time. Are you going through a stressful time at work? Are you trying to get a promotion? Do you have a lot going on at work? Know that the stage is always going to be there. So if you are trying to prep to maybe cover other things going on, or if you are just like, I just need something to focus on, but it's for the wrong reasons, so you just want to do prep because everything else is going to shit, so you're like, let's just like go on a prep. If you haven't addressed the other things going on, then they're still going to probably be there after prep, or I'll make your prep difficult. You might not even make it to stage if you're so focused on other things. So it's like, make sure the people around you are fully supportive, make sure your work's fully supportive, make sure you're in a really good environment, because even if it means you sort out all that external stuff first and you just go, right, I'll go at maintenance for a few months, you have more food, more energy, you can sort out all the other variables, and know that when you then prep, you're only going to bring a better look, like I said, but also have a better prep for it. So yeah, making sure that not only your externals are in a good place, but you mentally are in a good place. You want it for the right reasons, not to just cover up something, because then you spend so long because you've decided to fixate on this prep. What are you going to do afterwards if you haven't fixed those external things? And that's been your whole focus, to sort out whatever problems. You do your shows, and then you might be worse off because the stage is gone. And
yeah.
So yeah, it's everything as a whole. Like, especially
if you don't win.
Yeah.
You come dead last.
Then you're still going to have the problems and you're going to be grumpy. So
yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, let me ask you this, Chris. What made you decide to compete? Enter prep for these shows this year?
It was mainly a case of I'd had a year off. I was happy with my last my performance in 2021. And I feel like for me to move up the ladder with my own progression, the next step was aiming for the universe. So I was always sort of set on. After I saw it last year, I thought I would like to do that. So it was just a case of my own personal goals as a bodybuilder, a competitive bodybuilder, is the way I wanted to go with it. And I felt like at the end of a good, successful off season, we were in a good spot. It probably could have been a little bit better because we all had a stomach bug about 2 weeks before I started prep, which wasn't ideal. But to be honest, I didn't really lose any tissue from that. It was mainly just like stomach volume and all that stuff, as lovely as that sounds. So I just ended up starting the prep with like a waist that was 2 or 3 inches smaller. So that was cool. But why did I start the prep? I've been doing this long enough to have a natural progressive plan. But with some clients, like you say, that everyone's got a different reason for doing it. Some people do it for the pictures. Some people will do it because they want to start taking it competitively, as we do. And that's got to factor in as part of the conversation as well, particularly with the mental side of it. If you've got a first timer who wants to do it and they can't even go an off season eating on plan for a month, how are they going to do a prep? So it's just getting that starting point set up, setting the expectation, and figuring out why they want to do it. But whereas your starting point this time was obviously not your hand was forced, but you come to the end of the line with your push. Mentally, your body's rejecting the food. It doesn't make sense to carry on pushing in the position that you were in, because if you're not digesting that food properly, you're not going to be growing anymore. Your insulin response might have blunted. So that's another very good scenario of when it's a time for you as a coach to have a conversation with a client and say, look, this off season's no longer productive. I think we could put it back. How do you feel about doing a prep, or how do you feel about doing a diet? So that's another potential starting point for a prep is when your off season becomes unproductive, should you say?
Yeah, I did definitely get to a sticking point. I mean, I've been stuck at sort of like 102 for a good while now, and one of the things that I could have done was do like a sort of like a little cleanup phase and just reignite the hunger cues and things like that by just pulling down and doing a reset. But yeah, like you said, there wasn't really much point in doing it because I was coming to the end of my build anyway, and I was due to start prep in 4 weeks' time. So it doesn't really make
you've slapped on some serious thickness as well. You've made good improvements. So it's like there's no point in, for what improvements are you really going to get in the next 4 weeks versus what you've already done, apart from completely trashing your GI and your digestion. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of people might think as well that, potentially I could have spent a bit more time in the growing season. And I would agree, if I was going for an IFBB Pro card, I need a lot more size. I do need a lot more size. If I can confidently walk on that stage and think I'm going to be competitive for an IFBB Pro card, I probably need another 5 kilos, which would mean probably the rest of this year in a growing phase. But that's not my goal right now. That's not my goal. I am going to do a couple of pro qualifiers. That's just to test the water. But my main goal this year, I want the PCA Pro card. And I believe I've potentially added enough muscle tissue I do believe I've added enough muscle tissue to be competitive for that. Coming second at the finals last year, I reckon I've probably put on a good few kilos more muscle this time. And I've got a longer prep this time as well. So hopefully I'm going to come in leaner and bigger, which will be enough to make me even more competitive for it. So my goal aligns with how long I've had in my growing phase. But yeah, like I said, if I wanted that IFBB Pro card, I would definitely need longer.
I think that's where it comes down to where we're saying set your expectations to, or what results you want for what your expectations are. Like if you are a first time and want to do a low level show and you just want to throw yourself in, then absolutely, like you said, as long as you can know your fundamentals, everything's in place, you know what you're getting yourself in for, go for it, have fun, see what you look like when you lean down, see if you can do it, make it a fun experience. But then it's like with Matt, obviously he said he's not going for a IFBB Pro card, but he knows because he'd have to pack on a lot more muscle. But being second and doing so well in PCA last year, it's a lot more achievable for him to have that expectation to go for winning the PCA shows. Like with me, I know I fit the IFPB and NPC route. I was coming, like, I wasn't winning my classes. So there's no point me going again this year. If I can't win my height class, then I'm going to get into the overall, like, oh, if I did win my height class, how did I stack up in the overalls? But because I'm not even winning my height class, I know I've got a lot more muscle to build to become first, to then stand my own in an overall. So my expectation is I need a lot more muscle. So if I really want to look different on stage, obviously if I was winning my height class, then it's a bit different because you're like, okay, what did I need to do to stand out a bit more in the overalls? But if I'm not there yet, then it's silly for me to go back and be like, well, I expect, to win and get pro cards and everything because I know I need more muscle to grow and this isn't long enough. Whereas obviously with you with PCA, you were doing well. So
yeah, we know a girl that actually she wins her height class almost every time and she's always in the overall. She just hasn't quite got the card yet. So she is prepping a lot. She is like consistently prepping. And I kind of get that to that aspect because she's so close. She's just got to be at the right show at the right time and she'll get it. But like G said, if you're not quite winning your class yet, you're coming second, third or whatever, then you do need that little bit of time because you've got to win your class, you've got to win that overall and you've got to be a lot more leveled up to do that. But yeah, for me, I'm a bit weird. I don't want to jump straight to the IFBB. Like, even if that option was presented to me, like, I mean, it could be if I took more time in the off season. I want to just slowly climb up through the feds and do.
That's exactly where I'm at, dude. That's when I talked about my progression as a bodybuilder. It's sort of like the path I've laid out in front of me in my head, what I need, the boxes I need to tick to feel like I belong. where I belong, you know. And it's, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from there, dude. 100%.
I mean, you've done a lot of feds now as well, haven't you? I wonder how many between us we haven't done.
I haven't done any natural ones, mate.
Purely.
Yeah, purely. I can't imagine Chris, male model.
Mate, I could pull that off, mate. What are you on about? I'll just pull this off and stick it on my head. That's what I'd do.
Get your trunks on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've done quite a few different feds, actually. Yeah, because I've never done NABBA, but you did NABBA, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, NABBA was great. It was really good. I had a client in one of them last year, unfortunately, and it was the regional wasn't great, but the British was still really good, like really good standard. He was in novices, and it was still really good, good standard.
Is it a bit of an older crowd at
NABBA? They were all young guys, to be honest, but there's like a lot of them were like Eastern European guys, like absolute beasts that are rocking up to the novices. So it was really crazy. But yeah, it was a good show. It's always a good standard. I just think it's probably got a bit more of an allure across Europe now, you know, because they used to have the NABBA Universe and all that. But it was yeah. But I think PCA has well and truly filled the gap in Britain that NABBA used to hold anyway. So.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. We did have a couple of clients that were doing it, but they've pulled out now because it was on the 30th of April, which is when we're holding a Poozing boot camp. So they've decided to come to that instead.
Yeah, good plug.
There we go. But yeah, so I don't think they're going to it. So we haven't got anyone in NABBA. But a good thing about doing so many different feds is so our clients know. We can give our clients more information about those different federations. Like if we've competed in them ourselves, we can say which ones like are really good, which ones are maybe not so good, because there have been some not so good ones in the past. And I definitely have my favorites, that's for sure. I'm sure you do as well, Chris.
Yeah. There's always you do tend to find they all have a slightly different look that they like, and you know all the posing's different, and yeah, it's interesting like that. But like you say, that's where experience comes into it, and that's what we can offer our clients.
Yeah, because if you have one client that looks phenomenal, but yeah, it might not be rewarded in a certain federation. Georgia, for example, like she looks very, very good, but PCA,
great example,
doesn't work out for her because she's too big for what A class is bikini, and trained bikini she's not quite big enough, so she's in between, so she just can't really do that fed. She still loves that federation and it thinks it's really good. I mean, it's one of my favorites, but yeah, it's just not for her physique. So yeah, that's a benefit of us knowing, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's something as well, because obviously it could be something where I could move into the bigger classes if I wanted to train my quads and my back, but I have found the style that I like and I feel I fit, so I train for that. Like I'm definitely someone that trains for a look in myself, so rather than like to fit certain feds. So I've been lucky enough, because I like that style of training, to then find a federation that actually suits that style of training as well. So yeah, it all goes kind of hand in hand to know, like you said, what they are looking for, and where your kind of body type might fit.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good point, talking about the subject matter, actually, of, when's the right time to prep. Some federations like more condition than others. So if you are going for a fed that does like super, super shredded, then obviously you're going to need more of a time period there for your prep. Because there certainly are. I mean, I can think a couple off the top of my head where, one person might, for example, need 16 weeks to get ready and they'll do very well. Or if they go for another one, they might need even 24, they might need 8 weeks longer to get to that next level condition. Because I'm sure you'll agree with this, Chris, once you get to a certain point in prep, digging for that last little bit is one of the hardest things to do, and sometimes that can take the longest. Like the first bit of prep is a breeze.
Then the first 10% body weight come off no problem at all, and then it's like you say, you almost just need that length of time just to hang. You just got to hang there and just get gnarlier and gnarlier, and I always think that, like you say, each pound then is just savage. It really takes it out of you. But that's where extending your time frame and planning, when to start prep is really key. Really key.
How long does it take you to get ready from peak off season, or just finishing like a health phase in off season to get in show condition?
Me personally, if I needed to, I mean, we could probably do like an 8 to 10 week prep, and I'd have like shredded glutes, like not much at all, really. It's I'm very lucky in the sense that I can get in shape very quickly. But you know, flip the coin. The other side of that is I do find it harder to stack on the weight. And it's
what's that?
One or the other. People.
Yeah, and it's probably a bit genetic and a bit environmental as well. You know, because I'm even in the off season, there isn't a day where I'll do less than 18,000 to 20,000 steps. You know, as hard as I try, I cannot keep my expenditure down just because of the life that I lead. Being a father of 3, and that it's so busy. So that's where part of the struggle comes from. But it's great for digestion. It's great for insulin response. But it is hard to tip the scales sometimes, you know, in an off season. But for prep, it's great because I don't have to do much, if any, cardio really. So
yeah, that is ideal.
It pays off, you know.
I suppose because you're quite a big guy as well. So just walking does burn a lot more calories than, say, for example, Georgia walking. So
yeah, for sure, dude. Yeah, definitely. What about yourself? How long would you need, would you say? And Georgia as well. I'm interested.
Georgia needs a long time.
This time next year.
A bit longer. So I don't know.
I'll start prepping now, ready for next year's shows.
I'd say around 24 weeks at least, sort of look for Georgia, ideally, and to be in like a decent starting position as well, that we spoke about earlier. For myself, I can do it in a short time frame. I mean, I've done a prep once in, what was it, like 4 weeks?
Yes.
Obviously, I was already.
Was you eating Georgia's diet? Was you?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I was already lean to start with, but it was a low-level show, you know. But if I wanted to get into a condition that I think is respectable now for what I want to achieve, I would say this time around, for example, is 20 weeks, and that's 20 weeks in a deficit. That's not 20 weeks to the show, because I've factored in a couple of maintenance periods within that as well, you know. So
got social times.
Yes, yeah, we got a trip planned and things like that. So I will still be on track there, but I'm just going to bump my calories up a little bit to maintenance. So yeah, 20 weeks in the deficit is pretty much like should be bang on for me, so I can just cruise in as smooth as possible. But yeah, I mean, last year I did, the first show was like 10 weeks. And I was respectable condition, but not what I needed. I took a further 6 weeks to get to where I wanted to, but that was a really hard push, to be honest. So yeah, 16 weeks I can do it in. Ideally 20, I think, for me.
Well, last prep I did do it in 17 or 18 weeks, but that was brutal.
That's why she was on like 2 hours of cardio, sub 1,000 calories.
No, to be fair, all of my preps I've ended it like that. It's just that progressed a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that prep was brutal because we had such a short time frame, because I just went from like peak off season and had 14 kilos to lose and be like, now I'm prepping. So that is not optimal. Do not do that.
No, but it's all stuff to think about. Like, to anyone who watches this who is thinking about doing a show, if you haven't done one before, just think like we are, you know, what we're saying on the average consensus, you're looking at a 16 to 20 week diet. Yeah, you are eating set meals for 16 to 20 weeks on a plan. You know, you are going to be in a deficit for 16 to 20 weeks. And I think part of the factor in your head when you're thinking, should I do a prep, should I start a prep, is can you handle physically eating to a plan for 20 weeks? You know, that's just a huge factor that I don't think, you know, when you lay it out, that's almost, you know, a third of the year you're going to be stuck to a plan eating in a deficit. So I think as part of, you know, that's something you've got to factor in 100%.
I think on the flip side of that, especially with girls, because it tends to be a bigger problem with girls, is do you have a healthy relationship with food? Because on the flip side of that, it's very easy to go, yeah, I can follow a diet and follow a plan, everything. But what is not spoken about enough is that post-show, because the show is now done. You've done what you needed to. Yes, a lot of girls tend to do if it fits your macros now, as long as they're knowledgeable with it, because then it helps prevent a little bit of that feeling of restrictiveness. But post-show is so hard. So like what I've done with the girls on the team, especially because we've got a lot of first timers, is put a load of different podcasts together for post show, like everyone's thoughts and feelings. Those are different bodybuilding podcasts, and made it into a playlist. So I get them to start listening to that when they're a few months out, just so they can then get an idea, because you can listen to all the things until you've done it yourself. You don't quite know what you're going to get yourself into. But you never want to, like we always say to the girls, you never want to put you off that post-show is this awful thing. But it's because obviously if it was that bad, we wouldn't keep prepping. Like you just wouldn't keep doing it. But it is something that you might not have experienced before because of, you know, your, like, I know we've spoken about it before, your hunger hormones, your leptin, ghrelin, like they're just not in sync. The show is gone. So you're like, well, I can eat whatever I want. Your body is not, like your brain and stomach are not communicating to say you're full. You've been eating like chicken and rice for however long, or whatever, your fish and a rice cake for however long, that you then decide, I now want all the sweet stuff. So it can be quite hard on that flip side. So if you're going in with quite a bad relationship with food already, you're only going to make it worse. So if you can go in with a very positive relationship with your food, and like I said, if you can use sometimes, as long as you're knowledgeable and you are good with it and trustworthy with it and accountable with it, to use if it fits your macros where you can to a certain degree. Obviously it's quite limited towards the end, but it just means that we can really control that food focus, because that is something that's on the flip side of it, out the other end, can be quite a hard thing to manage. So yeah, making sure you've got a good relationship with food. If you have got any of the binging or any restrictive feelings or any worries about food at all before you start prep, we'll always say, let's manage that. Let's try photo shoot diet, let's try maintenance phases, let's try your relationship with food first, and then obviously go into pushing it a little bit more if they feel ready to.
Yeah. I think
it's a huge topic. You know, you could even do a whole other episode on just the post show, you know, the other side of this, because it's just massive.
Yeah, we've covered it a few times, haven't we? Because it is just so important, and no matter how much you cover it, and people sometimes listen to podcasts on it, sometimes they're still not prepared for that post show period. So it is really, really important. But I think we covered a lot there in you know, when to get ready for prep, or if you think you're ready. So a quick recap then. So it'll be your health metrics, it'll be your relationship with food, it'll be, are you mentally ready? Do you have enough time? So the framework to the show, and expectations for what you want to achieve. Have you got enough muscle tissue to achieve what you want to achieve? I think that was pretty much it. Was that all the points?
Yeah.
And I guess as well, just making sure you've got enough cards to play, so your food is already in quite a good spot, and you are a little more sedentary than you would be in the back end of a prep, you know. So like you said earlier, George, if you got someone who comes to you on 1,300 calories, 2 hours cardio daily, you ain't going to start prep, you know. So just reel that in a bit first, and then so that's your last point, I guess.
And with the expectations, especially if we do have first timers that are listening, sometimes you can put on the flip side of that too much pressure on yourself to have to do well and have to look a certain way, because you might be following so many other people that have done amazingly well and they look insane with their physiques. Remember, if it's your first time, if you haven't like taken proper off seasons, if you haven't been training for a long time, but you do just want to go in and see what it's all about because you've been nailing those fundamentals or whatever, just go in with those expectations that you're having fun, and don't put pressure on yourself to, you know, look like Susan looks or whatever. Like, you need to look like however your best is and then level up from there. But obviously if you're on the upper end where you are more competitive with it, then it is the more in depth of, am I going to come back better? How am I placing in my current shows? How am I building my muscle? What are my metrics like and everything? Just so it goes that hand in hand.
Oh, I thought of another one.
Oh,
do you have enough cash?
Oh yeah, so expensive.
Yeah, stable income, mate, definitely.
It's expensive, especially for girls. Like me and Chris are quite lucky, you know. Chris has only got to pay for his little pants. I've just got to pay for my shorts. Georgia,
what are you on about, mate? That's what the Insta guys pay for, mate. All the DMs pay for that. Pay for pay.
In return.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
that's it. I won't wash them. You can buy me a couple more.
But yeah, poor G, you know, it's a bit more money, isn't it? How much are your bikinis?
So bikinis can really vary from like maybe 200-300 quid up to like 600-800 quid. But yes, I'm very fortunate. I work with Sammy at Bikini Boutique, not a plug, but it is a plug. She is lovely, head to her for bikinis. But she also does rentals. So it does mean, because you get a lot of girls that don't want to wear the same bikini for different shows and things, it means that yes, you can get one specially made for you with all the colors that you want. Or if you're just wanting to save a bit of money, you can rent a bikini. Then that might be like 300 quid or whatever, which is still obviously a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. But it's not as expensive as like 600-700 quid one, because because obviously they go up in price depending how much crystals you have on. Shoes, they're about 100, 120 quid. Makeup, 70, 80 quid. If you want to do your own hair, then you've got hair extensions if you're adding them in.
Jewelry.
Yeah, I have that problem. Hair extensions costs a fortune.
And then tan and everything, and entry and everything on top of that. So yeah, it does all add up. But I think we've covered costs and stuff, haven't we, on an episode before?
I think so, probably, yeah. But yeah, it is a factor of, are you ready to prep? It is that cost factor. So yes, it's another thing.
Definitely worth doing your own research into looking into it once you know your kind of federations, because again, the different federations you're going for, you've got Two Bros, which is a completely different cost to like PCA.
Yes, yeah, very different. But again, your coach should know that, or when you go onto the website, you should be able to find out that information. So are you gonna do anything with your beard, Chris, on show day?
Yeah, it's coming down, mate, to be honest. This is just like neglecting my personal hygiene, so I'll probably take a couple of inches off.
Really?
I'll still have the beard, but it's so long at the moment, like on my side shots, it's covering the top of my pecs and my clavicles, so I need to, it's got to come down. And it's getting to the point now where I'm doing my cardio, walking around town, and people are throwing money at me now. So
I was going to say, the equivalent of your beard covering your chest is like bikini girls when their hair's too long and it covers their glutes.
Yeah.
You've got to trim it into that little V so it's proportions.
That's it.
A Leonidas beard, make it all like aesthetic.
Yeah, I could do, but the thing that puts me off that is I'm driving to the hotel on my own, and without the wife, there's no way I could pull something like that off. Like I'll get it cut down. I think make me look younger, more youthful.
Oh yes, yeah. I spoke to Andy. Andy's our classic guy. He's competing next week. I said, "Oh, if you want to do well in classic, mate, you've got to grow that moustache." So he's thinking about it.
Yeah, the classic tash.
Yeah, he gets facial hair quite quick. It's not most people aren't like me. That takes me about a year to grow this. So yeah. So yeah, we covered everything there. I think pretty good. You said you got some questions through, Chris?
Yeah, I've got some questions. Yeah, I'll do. There's one or two really good ones. I think this one's quite cool actually, because it's almost the total opposite of what we've just been talking about. It's from Joe. Joe's a really good guy, man. He's he's a Gen Pop guy, but he lives like a bodybuilder, so he's just such a cool guy. But just want to shout him out because he's awesome. But he says how to tell if you need a physical break against a mental one, or how do you know when to take a pause and rest? So it's kind of the opposite of what we're talking about. Like, well, I guess when you've been pushing and pushing and pushing, at what point would you say to yourself personally, when do you deload? Because we're so good at just pushing and hammering our bodies. When does your head tell you I need to rest? What markers are you looking for?
So for me, it's performance for sure. Performance, how you feel in general. Like, are you feeling like absolutely run down and battered? Like sometimes like my joints can get a bit fucked if I'm pushing really hard. Like this is probably the first time this week, actually, weirdly, this question's come up where I felt like I maybe need a deload. I only used to run them in the past if I was on holiday or if I got ill. But I think because I've gone through a pretty good push in terms of my building phase with the anabolics in, I've got quite strong. And I think that it's battered my body a lot more than I'm used to. And just this week, haven't I? I've been like, I just feel fucked. I think I need an actual deload. So that'll be one thing, just how you feel within yourself. Sleep is another one. If your sleep's starting to get a bit affected, like, because that can be an influencer as well, I find. I think they're the main ones for me physically. Mentally, sometimes I think mentally you can overcome it. I think mentally, if you're progressing well physically, I try and get people to push through that mental barrier, because oftentimes it's just like a little phase that they're in and then they can get through it and then just carry on progressing. But if the physical matches with the mental, then that's a really good indicator that you need to potentially take a break, because taking that little bit of time off like reignites that mental desire to get back in that gym, doesn't it? And it makes you want to get back in there. So yeah, I think if it all matches up, that's a really good indicator. But if it's just mental on its own, I usually try and get clients to just man up, push through it.
I think on the mental side, just because I've seen it with some of the girls, is the only time I'd say mentally, if it's, sometimes it is a case of like, you're just in your head, like sort it out, push through. Let's reestablish. Sometimes it's just reminding your reason why. You've just lost your why, and you've just gone through the motions and all this. The only time I would say let's pull back is because I've had it quite a lot with a few girls recently, whether it's the time of year or what, is if there's other stresses going on. So you're not giving it all to your training sessions, they're half-assed or whatever, because you've got some sort of mental stress with like exams or family, or you're picking up extra shifts at work or whatever it is. Then you're mentally getting so stressed about that you really don't want to train. So then I would say you need to let's pull back on training to establish all the other stresses going on, because when you've got those stresses going on, you can then control your training again. You'll enjoy it again. But if you're just going in and thinking, oh shit, I've got to, I'm running around because I've got this exam to do, I've got this revision to do, I've got this shift because I picked up an extra shift, then I've got to feed the kids and all this, then your training is just going to be half-assed. So then you're going to feel more deflated because you're rushing and you're not hitting numbers, and you're not going to have that love. It's going to feel like a chore. So I have done it recently a lot with pulling back on a couple of girls to be like, let's just pull certain things away. Let's even sometimes giving them maintenance, like not just pulling on food, training. Let's give you more food because that will give you more energy, which is going to put you in a better mood, which means you're going to absolutely smash these things a lot quicker, rather than just ticking those boxes, delaying the inevitable of your burnout. And then we've literally gone, let's just stop that before it happens. Let's control all those variables. And then after a week or two, you've smashed all the externals, you've controlled all your extra shifts, or you've got a plan ready to revise for the next like few weeks or month and all that. Then you're like, right, now I can get back in the gym because I've sorted my headspace out to feel in a better place, ready to progress.
Mm-hmm. It's good points. Yep.
I just think more
it all cascades, doesn't it? Like that's what you're saying, it's
that's the difference from men and women. Men are very much like, right, you can do it, get on with it, but girls are just like, my life's falling apart. Mindset behind everything as well.
This is why it's quite good whenever me and George are on a podcast, because we offer like different sort of perspectives, because I work with mainly just the competitors. And then Georgia does work with more lifestyles. So for the competitors, I do generally try and just, if it, like I said before, if it's just a mental thing and they're progressing really well, I'm like, just push through it. You've got a goal to hit. We've got targets. We want to improve you for the stage. But if it's a lifestyle, then like G's just covered there, there's many aspects that can come into it. And if it's just that you're doing this for a hobby and for fun and for a lifestyle, which bodybuilding is as well, I suppose, but it's completely different, isn't it? You don't have that stage to go for. You can pull back a lot more, take a break.
Oh, yeah, definitely in prep. You just have to, like, you've gone in prep for a reason. Yeah. You can't beat around the bush. Like, if you've got shit going on, you've got to sort that shit out, but keep going, because like Matt said, you've got that deadline. Like, you know what's happening, and you should know what you were getting yourself into because you assessed if you were starting prep. So it is a case of just, and I think I talk to myself very bodybuilder like, because I am, but with the girls I've always got to think of the lifestyle aspect. Like, this isn't the be all, you're not a competitive bodybuilder. So there's other things, like when you do have like your other things going on.
So it depends on the person.
I think that's a good thing with us as well, because we can use each other's opinions. So it's not always a one coach narrow-minded opinion that this is the only way. Like, Matt could give me advice on things that would be able to help, and then I can give him my mindset on certain things. So it means you've got many different mindsets behind things to give different opinions. So there's always those options. Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt, because I'll mentally, I'll just beat myself into the floor. If I've got a job, I'll do it, So I think it's really useful for bodybuilders to track your markers, like you said, like your sleep, your digestion, your niggles, your aches, your pain, because sometimes you have to just stop and look at things as a bigger picture to think, like, hang on, I haven't progressed this for a few weeks, or I've been sleeping, like, I keep waking up in the night, or, what's going on, or, and I think when you start to look at those factors, you might realize that actually it's been a long time since I've had a break. And I think, because mentally we will all push through it, because it's kind of like our job. So you think, right, I think anyway, when I'm going to the gym, I'm going to put a shift in, I'm going to smash it, and I'll just go and do it no matter how I feel. Even in the off season, if I'm gassed out, pregnant belly, like full of food, I'll just be like, right, let's go, sweating, But it's when you look at those little details, sometimes you don't realize your body's screaming at you saying, dude, like, you need a break. And I think that's what's for me, the physical will align with the mental. Like you said, Georgia, like when you do take that break and you give your body what it needs, then you'll go back to the gym after a week or a fortnight. I think, yeah, like I feel way better. Like, and it's a black and white difference. So yeah, me personally, it's all about just tracking those markers and making sure you're not killing yourself. We'll do another one. This is quite a cool one. Benefits of steps versus designated cardio sessions, and would you do both?
This is a good question. It is a good question, because I know certain coaches that don't track steps and they get very good results for their clients. I know certain coaches that do track steps and they get great results for their clients. So it depends on the approach. I don't think I'm more biased towards tracking steps and having cardio in if you need it. If you don't need it, then I think steps is a very good way to get into to condition, because it's just so low impact and it's quite easy to do. It's good for your mental health. Like you pointed out earlier, Chris, it's good for your digestion as well. So if you can get shredded just walking, then that's going to be better for you than doing cardio. If you compare it like this, right? If you have two cardios, both the extremes, steps and high intensity interval training. Like high intensity interval training is going to batter you. It just is. Like, it's very, very hard to do. Yes, it will get you in shape. It will make you lose fat, but it can also have an impact onto your training, and it can also increase like your stress levels. For example, she will get good results from HIIT training for a very short period of time. Then her body fights it, doesn't it? Because you don't react well to stress at all.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely can't do HIIT workouts. As in, like, I could do high impact Stairmaster for so long, but if I'm in a prep, I have to stop. If you actually got me doing a HIIT workout, albeit I'm incredibly unfit and it batter me just doing a box jump, my body would still be so stressed that it would just be completely irrelevant and I would swell up with water.
Yeah, she actually stops dropping. So you compare that and then to the flip side of things, where steps is just so low impact. Like I said, it doesn't really impact your training. The only negative to steps is it burns calories at a slow rate. So you've got to have the time in the day to be able to do it, or it's got to fit your lifestyle. If you're an office worker where you naturally you get about 3,000 steps in a day, then trying to do your whole prep, getting in 15K plus steps it's going to be really difficult for you time wise. So it's got to align with it. That's why I think usually a combination of the two, steps and cardio in the gym, is the best way. Yeah, if steps fit in your lifestyle and you can do it and get shredded on that, I would always opt for that personally.
Yeah, I'm the same. I like to use a combination of the two. I think for prep, having a baseline of steps is really useful, because as you get more tired and ragged towards the end of it, you're going to stop moving, you're going to slow down, you're going to be sat on the sofa a bit more, sat in your office chair a bit more, versus getting up and doing bits and bobs. So I would always have a baseline of steps that I like guys to stick to, and I'd base that off where they are when we start. So let's say they're starting a prep, I'd say to them, right, just look at your steps for a couple of days, give me an average of what you're getting, and that'll give me like a baseline of their activity. And then I'd probably hold that and just see where the weight moves. If it's achievable, I'd always up the steps first until it starts to become like a pain for their schedule. And then that's when I'd throw in like cardio, a couple of cardio sessions a week, and maybe we'd start looking at heart rate or just something enjoyable just to get, a few more results out of it. But I think the steps are useful for just keeping that continued movement throughout the day, particularly in a diet situation and in the off season too, not killing people with steps, but for digestion, in between meals, 10-minute walks, that sort of stuff.
And your CV health as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's, just daylight exposure, not in this country, but, a bit of daylight exposure does wonders for mental health. If you give someone who's doing, like you say, an office job, maybe they get 4,000 steps a day. If you just say to them, look, just try and, have a little walk at lunchtime, just bump them steps up to 6,000, and they're going to get all kind of benefits from that anyway. So that's when that could be useful for steps as well. But yeah.
I've said before, so like, obviously it's a little bit different with lifestyle because you don't have to be as like intense, but it's always a good thing to think about. I always try and compare it to like, say you're wanting to save for something. So say to the girls, you want to save for a new handbag or a car or even a house or whatever. You're going to track your income and your expenses to see how much you've got in your savings. So it's very relevant to, if we're going to track our food, so we're tracking like the energy we're putting into us, we want to track our expenses, so our energy out. And for prep, if you can be more accountable with all those other variables, you know the best way to keep you progressing forward. So if you can watch the food you're going in, obviously you do anyway, but then you are tracking things like your steps and your cardio, it means you know exactly where you're heading to what you can manipulate. So yeah, I try and like use that reference because I feel like that's something that can be quite good to think about. Is, oh, okay, yeah, actually, because when I do start budgeting my money, I make better progress with my savings. So when I actually start thinking about what I'm putting in and what I'm exerting out, I will make better progress.
So talking about steps, I was quite annoyed about this today, right? So I got my first day of prep, right? Day one. So I got my Apple Watch, good to go, charged it up, really excited to use it, you know? And then we got into the supermarket and I was holding onto the trolley. I was like, it's not tracking anything.
Mate, that's the story of my life, dude, with the pushchair. I get exactly the same, dude. Yeah, it kills me. It breaks me.
I don't have that problem.
But
I don't have an Apple Watch.
She's got like a Chinese little cheap knockoff.
It was about 40 quid off Amazon, thank you.
40 quid, and this is like 200 plus. That tracks it.
No way.
I was
so George's got the app Fu Watch You, and it's it's just as good. it's
like
better.
It's not a Chinese app to connect it to my phone. I was like, I can't be asked for that. I only need it for steps.
Yeah,
tracks all of
That's
them.
brilliant. Well, moral of that story is go and buy your go on what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. Alibaba. Get yourself a knockoff Apple Watch.
He'll have to stick his watch around his ankle and look like he's on tag.
I have seen people have their watches around their ankles, but I've just got it on my phone now, so I'm gonna stick to it on my phone. It's always in my pocket anyway.
Makes sense, dude.
How many steps you doing?
At the moment, we've just baselined it at 15 now, because we're trying to just like chill out a little bit. But I've got like today, I've not even tried. I've done 18 and a half. Like that's just because the kids are at separate nurseries, so I had to walk to one nursery, come back, then go to another nursery, come back. You know, a few jobs in the day, and then same at the end of the day, other nursery come back, and it's like, yeah, by the time you've done all that, it's it soon adds up. It's ridiculous.
Wow. See, if I don't try and get steps in, I'll be like the office guy because I'm on my laptop all day. I'll get about 4,000 steps in.
Yeah,
barely anything. So I've started mine at 10k, but I have to physically go out and do more walking to get that 10k.
Yeah, you'll fall into that though, won't you? Like, give it a week or two, and once you've got your routine, you'll be like, boom, you'll be nailing that. So it's just part of setting your day.
We've got one client, it's the most steps I've ever seen. Like sometimes she hits 40k in a day.
Whoa, that's wild.
She's a groom, so works with horses. So yeah, because I remember I used to do that as a job, and you're literally just walking around all the time.
I couldn't believe it when I saw it.
That's insane. Yeah.
In and out, like you're just always walking, and then when you're not walking or
that's wacky.
Riding, so it's still exercise.
Yeah, it's mad.
Yeah, I bet she's peeled, eh?
She's losing nicely. Yeah, it's a lot of steps.
Yeah, bless her.
Naughty. I'll finish on a fun one then. This one's really, really simple. You'll probably hate this, Matt, at the moment with how you are with food, but we've got favorite cheat meal. I don't like the word cheat meal. I just use off-plan, whatever. Yeah, I don't like the word cheat meal.
Cheat your diet.
Yeah, that's it. So I guess if you're going for a slap-up meal, what are you having?
I've got zero food focus, mate. I really don't know. Well, to be fair, we usually go pizza, don't we?
Yeah.
Like when we are in prep and stuff, we'll have a Domino's. Simple. Like it. It's good.
Nice.
I'll always want pizza for like savory, but sweet stuff, I'm all in. Like, give me everything. Krispy Kremes, give me like cake, give me Percy Pigs, give me donuts, just give me everything. But it was funny, to be fair. We went to an all-you-can-eat the other week as like our joint birthday kind of presents to each other. We went to Bristol Zoo, and then we went to an all-you-can-eat, and we were saying how it's funny, like, so they've got like Indian, Chinese, Mexican, American, I think they had something else, and they had like the pudding section.
It was Zaza Bazaar. Have you ever been there?
In Bristol.
No, it sounds good though. It sounds cool.
It was amazing.
Good, yeah.
So we were saying it's funny how you pick obviously your favorite dishes for your first food. So Matt got Chinese. Yeah. So he went straight to the Chinese section and got Chinese stuff. And all he did was criticize my plate because I went to the American and lit like a few bits of pizza. And then I made a little burger, a bacon burger, and then I put some nachos on it. And then I put like a bit of lasagna on the side, and then a bit of chips. all that was missing, mate, was potato smileys and turkey dinosaurs.
Yeah, dude, you've completed it there.
Bit of pizza and lasagna, shoving it in. It's so good. So yeah, I'm really.
Mate, I can't fault you.
I'm one of those people that's like, don't take me to like a slap up meal, like take me to McDonald's, because I'm so simple. Like it's not about like quality to a degree. I just love all food. So yeah.
You know what you like.
He doesn't like posh places, do you? You hate it.
No, I just feel like you pay so much money for very little food. And I'm a very hungry person. Like when I'm not in prep, like I don't want to pay 50 quid for prep food, like prep portions. I want to know and pay like, if I pay 50 quid.
I want to pay 12 quid and get all you can eat.
And I mentioned I did. See,
well, when you come here for a sesh, I'll do your baked beans, turkey dinosaurs, potato waffles. You'll be sorted, mate.
That's a dream.
Yeah, I'm so easy to please. We went skiing like 4 years ago, and we went to the shop, and I just saw this massive family share of baked beans, and I was like, a quid? I was like, that'll keep me going. I just got a load of them. Big tin of beans. She's more quantity over quality.
Yeah.
I like the simple things in life. So yeah, savory is pizza and sweet is anything sweet. I will keep going until it's physically taken off me or it's all gone.
She's a cheap date. It's good.
Great.
Yeah, that's good, man. Yeah, I'm not really a sweet guy, to be honest. I used to be, like in my little stoner days. I was like, I could just nail it, like no problem. But I've not got a massive sweet tooth now. I think if I had a meal of choice now, I'm really boring, to be honest. But I'd probably have a Sunday dinner, like a nice carvery, nice bit of meat, fresh veg, all the trimmings, Yorkshire puddings, all that stuff, and that would be enough for me. I'm not massively food focused even when I'm really hungry, but sometimes you just want a good rounded meal, So I think that's where I'm at most of the time.
Are you homemade roast guy, or would you go out for it?
Yeah, dude. Oh, my mum's Sunday dinners, mate, were the best, like absolute best. But we rarely get them now, so it's if you get me a good carvery, I'll be happy for sure, man. Yeah. Roast beef, got to be roast beef.
Before I started, so I was always a foodie, but like prep hasn't done this to me. I've always been like a massive foodie, and I remember I worked in the vets before for my first prep, and I specifically didn't tell them for about 3 weeks that I was doing a prep, because I didn't want them, just in case I failed or something, I didn't want to tell them that I'm on this weird diet thing. But I was always the person that ate, because there was always food. If you've ever worked in a vet, there's always food. So there's always chocolates, there's always biscuits, and I was always the person that just finished everything. So they started noticing just after a few days that I wasn't eating the food, and then it was even more annoying because it was left for a few days longer, and I was like, God damn it, why do you bring food in and not eat it? So
I bet that killed you, didn't it? I bet you hated that.
I can't leave like food once it's opened. I'm just like a Henry Hoover.
She chucks it away. Don't you? She chucks it away. I'll be like, yeah, just leave it there. I'll have it like tomorrow if I fancy it or whatever. Next thing I know, she chucks it in the bin because she otherwise she eats it.
Yeah, I'm better now. But post show, that is one of the things to get like things out of my system without like binging or like going crazy. So until I can regain my mindset again, if I've seen the new like Biscoff cream biscuits have come out, I'll allocate obviously so much and track it so I know I've enjoyed it. But if I've got like a whole thing, that's why like portion controlled like packets of Oreos are good, because I'm like, it's like 100 calories for these packets of Oreos rather than like a whole thing of Oreos, because no matter what size I get, it's gonna all go. So like,
yeah, it'll get nailed. Yeah,
is and that's tips post show. If you're a foodie, portion controlling yourself. don't restrict, still enjoy it, but be sensible with it. Otherwise, yeah, you're left with an open thing and then you just feel the need to eat it all. But yeah, I kind of wish I wasn't as food obsessed, but I've always been like it.
Yeah.
You'll be there in a few weeks, Matt. Give it 6 weeks, mate. You'll be there.
Probably. I've timed it quite well. So basically I'm doing a 10-week push, and then we've got a trip to Dubai. So that'll break it up nicely.
Ah, lovely. Yeah, nice.
And then we've got a couple of other things planned. So yeah, it's like periodically,
periodically.
I can do this word. Periodically.
There we go.
Split up throughout the year. So yeah, it should be hopefully nice and smooth, but we'll see, mate. We'll see.
Good stuff, guys.
Awesome. Any other questions, Chris? That was it? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few others. I mean, they're the best, to be honest. I should probably take off in a minute because the kids are squealing. I need to get them down, sort them out, power slam them a little bit. Stone Cold Stunner.
Awesome. Right. Well, good to speak to you, mate. And yeah, I think we covered that topic pretty well. So next thing will be the show day vlog for next weekend. So obviously, yeah, Chris is competing. 3 others are competing, so it's going to be a good day. So looking forward to that. Thanks for listening, guys. As always, if you do like it, make sure you share on your socials, tag us in it, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.